Ooh, that looks tasty. Folks, today the Hungry Gamer is back with another game review, and today we're talking about Monasterium by Arvid D. Fuller. And I do apologize for mispronouncing that name. Before I get started, please make sure you turn on your Klingon subtitles, because if I make any mistakes in the rules overview, that is where you will find the corrections. Now, what this game is it is a Euro game in which each player is taking control of a bunch of initiates that it is going to be putting out into these different monasteries. And as you put them out into the various monasteries, you'll be gaining various resources, gaining points, and also you will be completing this stained glass window. Again, as you can see, to get resources and, you guessed it, points. And you're going to be doing this through a series of dice drafting and dice action selection. Now, if you are not interested in how this game is played and just want to jump into my final thoughts, then you want to go to the timestamp on the screen right now. For those of us still here, let's talk about how you are actually going to do all of this. And what's going to happen is, at the top of each round, each player is going to have a set number of dice. They will have one, or eventually possibly more, dice of their own color, and then, depending on the player count, a set number of white dice. And what's going to happen is, one player will go and they will roll all their dice, and then they will pick which number they would like to have available in that round. And so what that means is, I could take 5 and say, I'm putting 5s in the game. Or I could say 6, and I could take both of these 6s and put them in the game. And then I would take my dice back, and another player, they would roll, and they would put out whatever dice it is that they're going to keep, and we'll just say that they wound up putting a couple 3s in, and then came back to me, and we'll say I used my green die and I had a 4, and you get the idea. All players will put out all of their dice, and there will be a collection that will be out there. Then, on each player's turn, they will get to select one number from this row and then activate it based on what the action is. And you're able to pick up to 3 unless you take the 6s, in which case you can only take one of them because they are wild. So I could, on my turn, take both of these 3s and activate them. And again, I'll explain what you're going to do with those in just a moment. Or I could, if I wanted, just take one of them. However, if there happened to be 4 of them out there, I could only take a maximum of 3. On the other hand, let's just say we had this right here, and there happened to be 4 3s out there, and it was my turn, and I'm green. I could not take those 3. Rather, I would have to take my 1 green die, because only I can take the green die. No other player can ever take it, and 2 others, thus leaving this one right there. Now, what do the dice do? Well, each of them has a basic action, which you can actually see down here on the board. You have the 5s, which simply move your donkey cart forward 1, and I'll explain why that matters in a minute, though there are bonus actions you get to take as you go down. I'm not going to go into that in depth. There are the 6s, which I mentioned are anything you would like. There are 4s, which simply will get you a rosary. There are 3s, which get you an influence. Don't know who that's supposed to be, but we'll call him Brad. There are 2s, which get you soup. And there are 1s, which will allow you to take an initiate off your board and put them out into the monasteries. Now, each time you place them out in the monastery, they have a different cost, and some combination of soup, tomes, tools, influence, or brads, and rosaries. However, you also have to pay attention to where your donkey cart is, your little friar tuck here. So if I was here, you'll notice that there's a path that goes to that monastery and a path that goes to this monastery. That would mean that when I took the action number 1, which puts an initiate from my board onto a monastery, I could go into one of these 2 here. If I was over here, the path would go from here to here, and if I was over here, here to here, and so on and so on. Now, this is what your player board looks like at the beginning of the game. So you have all these initiates that you can put out into the various monasteries. And you'll see the monasteries are broken down into these rooms here, this inner cloister, and then the chapel over here. And that's going to relate to each row on your player board. So if I wanted to take one of these guys from the top here, I'd use a 1 action, and then I would spend 2 resources of the same color that matches what's here. So if I wanted to go in this one right here, it would cost me 2 soup, and, as you can see, a brad, or an influence. And then I could take any one of these off and then place it into this spot on the board to get a soup, and that would get me some points and another tool. And then the same thing with these others here, you get increasingly more points. The other reason that's important is because you have to have someone around here to get into the cloister. They got to open the door for you. And that's something you're going to be able to do down here. If you spend your rosaries, you'll be able to take one off of one of these, and they'll be able to go into the cloister there. However, when you take these bottom off, you're also going to get to flip over your main window at the top, so anytime you take that basic action, you'll also get points. To get into the chapel here, you're going to need to spend your brads, and you'll have to spend more and more of them depending on how many you already have in that chapel. And you'll take one of those off and it'll go in there. And in-game scoring will be affected by how many you have in the chapel and in the cloister. It's actually a multiplication problem you're doing to figure that out. But what it's going to do is it's also going to unlock this ability to draft different stained glass window tiles. And I'll get to that in just 1 second. And so on and so on. This is how this works. However, what's happening is as you're going through, you are unlocking all of these other potential things that you can do when you roll that number. So now with a 3, I could just get a brad, or I could get a soup. Or once per turn, I could get 2 soup, or 2 brads, or 2 rosaries. Over here, I could move my donkey cart twice, and so on and so on. You get the idea of how that works. Now, I mentioned the stained glass tiles, and that is this right here. Now, when you have someone in the chapel and you roll the number that allows you to access the take a stained glass tile, any chapel that you have, one of your initiates in, you can take the tile and drop it onto this board here. And this is going to be a bit of a Sudoku style thing. You're going to have to go from left to right, but you can't ever have in the same row or column the same color, same type of tile. So this would be allowed. This would not be allowed. However, that would be allowed. And every time you complete a column or a row, you're going to get points. And every time you place one, you could choose one of the 2 rewards that are above or to the left of it. And you're going to be playing around and around 3 times through, all the dice being drafted per player. And so what that means is, if you're playing a 2-player game, it means you're going to have all the dice come out, and they will all be drafted and used a total of 6 times. However, if you're playing a 3-player game, you're going to have all the dice out and used and drafted a total of 9 times. Though each player will have fewer dice depending on the player count, but that's kind of the way that works. However, you will also have varying in-game scoring conditions that will change every single game. And based on what round you complete it in, you'll get a different number of points, and it's simply telling you what you have to do. In this case, I would have to have in the green chapel, which is just off the screen over there, one of my initiates, while in this chapel right down here, I have to have somebody around the edge, and in the chapel just over there, I would have to have somebody in the cloister. And there's a whole variety of different ones of these that you come in the game that you can get, and there are a couple of in-game ones like this, which is have 12 initiates out, or this one here, have 3 of your initiates in one of the red spaces. But you get the idea. And then at the end of the game, there's a little bit more scoring that goes on. You'll get points for whoever has the most initiates out on the board total. As I mentioned, each of the different monasteries, you're going to multiply the number of initiates you have in the chapel times the number you have in the cloister, then multiply that by 2. If you have initiates simply in all the chapels, you get increasing more points, and resources are worth points also at the end of the game. But that actually covers mostly how this game works. So, what do I like about this game? The first thing is I absolutely adore the core mechanic of this game, the dice. I love the reverse drafting, I guess you'd call it, at the beginning of the game, where you're rolling the dice and picking what you want to put out and trying to figure out what the other players are going to do and trying to make sure there's stuff that's going to be good for you but not leave too much for them. I love that. And then that carries on into the way that you're going through and continually making each of those actions for the dice better. But you have to do it in a strategic way, because all of those in-game scoring conditions are going to be contingent on you getting these different initiates out into the different monasteries. And it's just fascinating. I love everything about it. I find the puzzle to be really satisfying to play with. It has moments to where you're just cursing the person across the table because they took the thing you want. Or my personal favorite, when They take something that just ruins your plan because now you have to make a harder choice than you thought you were going to have to make. It's fantastic. It's just mechanically fantastic. Period. Along with that, to a lesser extent, I like the way the scoring works in the game because it adds to the challenging choices you have to make. You have those times when maybe you use those rosaries and you get someone into a cloister, which is not the easiest thing, so you can simply upgrade one of the abilities at the top. So every time you do that, you're going to get points. Or maybe you're going to just book it and haul butt get down to the end so you can get more dice so you have more things to play with. And it's just these fantastic choices as you're going through. And it's always hard because I do think it is possible to get all of the secret objectives. I guess not secret, the public objectives. The best I've done is, I think, 4 of the 6, but it's really, really hard. You really have to think through what you're doing, but at the same time, you can't plan too far ahead because you don't know what the dice are going to be, and you don't know what's going to be left by the time it comes back around to you. And I just love that, because what it does is, well, it doesn't remove all analysis paralysis, it's still there, but what it does do is it removes the ability to just plan now and know what it's going to be 5 turns down the road. It adds an element of chaos, which I like, but more importantly to me, what I like more than chaos, I love chaos, is I like reaction. I like seeing the situation that is there, and I have to react to it. And this game gives me that in spades. Really, really enjoy that. So what are my quibbles with the game? Well, the first thing is it's pretty dry. There is the monastery theme, and you're using the different monastery-like things. You have the patron, Brad, I guess his name is, I don't know. And you have rosaries, and you have the monasteries, and the stained glass, and a friar tuck donkey cart. Yeah, kinda. And it's not the driest Euro out there, but it's pretty dry. And along with that, it's got a very Euro theme. We are monks. I'm assuming monks in Germany. I mean, like, that's dry. Real dry. Not the driest game I've covered recently, but it's up there. So there is that just to keep in mind. You're not playing this game for the theme, I don't think. You're playing this game for the mechanics. And along with that, it's a nice board. It's not the prettiest thing. I do like the little meeple initiates. In fact, I really hope that Levity Games will make little stickers I can put on there. So if you're watching, Ammon, and at Levity Games, you should do that for me. But it's very dry. It doesn't have, even if the theme was fully realized, it didn't have a huge thematic impact. And beyond that is something that I've already briefly mentioned, is that this is not a Euro game that you can do deep planning on. You have to plan. You have to think very carefully about what you're going to do, but you can't think too far ahead because the way the dice work and the way the drafting works and the reverse drafting works, you're just not going to be able to guarantee you're going to get what it is that you need. And so you're going to be doing a lot of preparation and a lot of what ifs, which might not be what you're looking for. I know a lot of people who like playing Euro games where they can just plan and follow their plan. Well, you can't follow your plan in this necessarily. You get little tiny little plans. You try to make those happen, and then you throw them out the window and have a new plan. And then the only other thing that I'll say is I'm real sad that there's no solo mode to this game. And I'm actually, I like this game enough that I'm actually kind of tinkering around with how it might work. And I've actually come up with a way that you can do it that just kind of lets you play a beat your own score, which So I'm actually working on it, but it doesn't exist now. And I think this would be a great game to have a bot, because then you could play 2 players and add 1. And I think the game is very different when you play with 3 or 4 rather than 2, just because when you play at 2, I know if I draft these dice, you have these options. However, in 3 and 4, I might draft these dice, and by the time it comes back around to me, I don't know what's going to be left. So it's going to be a very big difference when that happens. And you also wind with more times of actually kind of drafting the dice, that you're rolling less dice and whatever. But really, that's it, folks. I like this game. Like, I really do. And I'm serious about this idea that I'm going to try to come up with some kind of solo, because The mechanics of this game are so enjoyable and intriguing to me that I want to keep playing it. In fact, it's still sitting out on my table after like a week and a half just because I want to keep mucking about with it. And I think that says a lot. This is a game that has a different vibe than a lot of Euro games because of the way the dice work and the drafting of the dice. But all in all, I think if you are someone that really does enjoy a good Euro experience, and again, a little bit of a drier Euro experience, but you're looking for something a little bit different than just worker placement or dice placement or drafting or engine building. Well, I guess there's a little bit of engine building. Then this is one to check out. I do not have any other Euros that feel the same when I play it. Nor have I played any other Euros that feels the same when I play it. So there you have it, folks. That is Monasterium. As you can tell, I'm pretty high on this one. I don't think it's right for everybody. I don't think if you're looking for a theme, deep thematic Euro, that this is not it. But I think there really is something fascinating here in this game. And as always, if I made any mistakes in the rules overview, please let me know in the comments with the timestamp so I can get that into the Klingon subtitles. As always, if you found this video useful, please like, subscribe, and share. Thank you so much for watching. Have a wonderful, wonderful day.